You are listening to the Light FM's Girl Talk podcast. My name is Carol.
This is Alicia.
Hey, I'm Tricia.
And we are so glad that you've joined us for another episode. This one could be a little tense because it is about, dun, 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 the stress of division. My goodness gracious. I think nearly everything that you can bring up in a conversation is dividing right now.
It is.
From masks to race to religion to, everything.
Lines in the grocery store.
Lines in the grocery store, which way to go down the aisle in the grocery store, politics. Yeah. Did we miss anything?
I'm sure there's more, but
Ranch
those are like...
versus Thousand Island dressing. You get in a fight over that these days.
Yes, it is true. And it is very, very stressful. I had to giggle the other day because somebody posted on Facebook, it is okay to scroll up and see a post that you don't agree with and keep scrolling.
Oh, yeah. I know, right?
We have forgotten how to disagree and how to listen to somebody else's point of view on an issue. I think we've just, and for me, it's sad in a way because I think we have kind of forgotten what makes our country so great is that we don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to be on one side of an issue. We're allowed to have different opinions, but to still live together in harmony. And that's one of the things I've always loved about this country is that we're all so different. Right. And we've celebrated those. But in the last 6 months, we have not done much celebrating, y'all.
Well, the other day I was so stressed out because I was thinking about things like this. And I was on my porch and I thought, wouldn't it be great if everybody just had the same opinions and we all agreed on everything? And then immediately I was like, no.
Yeah.
That would be so boring and we wouldn't be who we are and we wouldn't learn and grow. But it is so stressful that everything, I'm afraid people can't even talk. They can't speak because they're going to be, whatever.
Attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem I find with it is you can't tell people about your faith in Jesus. Like you can't be a good example to someone because people are always looking for saying the wrong thing. If you say the wrong thing,
right.
I'm scared to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'm scared on social media. I'm scared in day-to-day life. I'm scared to wear the wrong T-shirt. I'm scared because I'm afraid I'm going to offend someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a lot of shaming going on.
Oh, yeah.
People are posting videos. I saw someone, it was in a store and this woman wasn't wearing a mask and she was getting shamed at the store and she threw things and ran out. And then they put the video online to continue the shaming. And I'm like, okay, I get if you don't agree that she wasn't wearing a mask. I get if you disagree with that. But I'm having a real problem with the online shaming and calling people out in such large ways. It's like, do we really need to do that? I feel like it's so hurtful. Can we just disagree? And can we try to, the mask thing is hard because I feel like it's the one thing that it feels like if you don't wear a mask, you're not protecting me. So it seems hurtful in some way if that's what you agree with, but I still don't think that, just stay away from those people. I think there's ways to do it where you can just take yourself out of that equation instead of putting fuel on the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. But everybody's so confrontational about it these days.
Yeah. Confrontation. That's the good word. It's so stressful to me.
It's becoming political.
Well, absolutely it is. And here's the thing that I got to thinking about, I knew we were coming to record this podcast. So I was thinking about if all three of us agreed on everything, no one would ever listen to this show.
Right.
The whole reason that people will listen to the show is because we have three different perspectives, three different opinions on things, and three different life experiences that we can all bring to this table and lay them all out here and say, okay, here's what I've been through and here's what I've learned. And I find that so valuable. And I think somehow in our society, we've lost sight of the value of difference.
Well, what works here that's not working out there? Do you know what I mean? What works when we can share our different opinions?
Well, respect.
It's not working.
Respect is one. But I think no matter what happens behind these microphones, if we disagree greatly, we all know we love each other.
Yeah.
I know that when the chips are down And when come what may, that you guys are going to be there for me, no matter what, no matter what, who I vote for, or whether I wear a mask, wear a wask, whatever. No matter what I do, you guys are going to be there for me.
Yes.
And I think that mutual love and respect is all the way around the table. So we know we can say things here. And we probably say more things here than we would just ordinarily out with conversations with other people, because we feel safe.
Well, there's trust.
Yeah, trust
and safety.
I feel like if you said if I said something that you didn't agree with, you wouldn't attack me.
Right.
You would listen. I think listening is key too. I think I want to say most people don't have great listening skills. I mean, that's kind of a blanket statement.
Sure.
But I think listening is a skill that you develop over time, and you have to work at it. You have to listen to what the person's saying and digest it and listen to the whole thing.
Right.
And if you disagree, you disagree. And then you can comment back. But I feel like it's this, no, if you disagree with me, then unfriend me right now.
Yeah.
Those types of things just shut down the conversation, and the friendships and the trust can't build because you're blocking them.
That's a real interesting thought.
Yeah, and I think one other thing is that we all want each other to be better. Like we have our best interest at heart.
Yes.
I don't force my opinion, and I've even told y'all from time to time, hey, if you see me say something or do something, I want you to call me on it, because that is part of this beauty of this relationship, is that we hold each other accountable. If I'm thinking those thinking thoughts and you see that, you called me on it, you've done it. And, if I get out of line in some way, you call me on it. And I think that's part of it too, is that's part of that building of trust, is that at the end of the day, I love you guys, and I know you love me, and I know you're going to do things to help me make me better, not to tear me down,
Yeah. I think that starts with a posture of every time you're talking to someone, you think to yourself, I have something to learn from them.
Oh, that is so great.
I read that somewhere.
So
I had a friend who told me that years ago. He's like, I will talk to anybody because I can learn something from every single person. And that struck me. I was like, really?
Yeah.
I didn't have that position. I'm like, I don't know if I can learn from everybody. Like, of course I don't think that's, But I was like, yes, you really can. And
You
if
can
you
learn.
have that mindset going in, it changes the whole conversation.
Well, you do exactly what you said, which is you listen fully to what they have to say, because you're listening for the thing or the things that you can learn from them or that you can agree with them on, and you're looking for the connections. But too much of the time, and I do this sometimes too, I hate it, but too much of the time we're already thinking about what we're going to say while they're still talking, and we're just looking for the break so we can get in there.
Yeah.
But it takes the time, and I think a lot of that is anxiety. I think for me, when I get anxious in a conversation, maybe it's not going well or it's not going the way I thought it was going to go, I start to get anxious, and then I'm much more likely to not listen and shut my mind down to what they're saying and think about what I'm going to say instead. But if I stop and if I breathe and I think I've got something to learn from this, I can handle it better.
Yeah, I think I've shared a quote one morning that said something like this: listen to understand, not to respond.
That's it.
Because I think we listen to respond and not to understand.
And especially now, I feel like people I don't think they are listening, but I think they're just trying to get their opinion out there, and they're not listening, and they're not responding. They're just putting their opinion out there, and then that's kind of it, and it's the end of the conversation. And so for me, when I see those types of things on Facebook, I'm muting them for 30 days, or I'm hiding posts so that I don't have to see the engagement in it, and it helps with my stress of not seeing it.
Gosh, I have a terrible tendency to read those things like I'm watching a train wreck. I'll read them and I'll go, well, then she said that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I do that. There's something yucky about that, and I'd like to do more of what you're talking about and turning away instead of being fascinated by it.
Well, I think it's, in our human nature to be drawn to that kind of thing and to see the spectacle of it. That's why, people record these crazy, interactions between, you don't know the backstory. You just see what's happening, and you're like, oh my word, this world's gone crazy, and you see that. I liken it to watching one scene of a movie. Like if you watch one scene of any movie that you can think of, whatever movie you've watched, if you watch one scene, you can come up with a totally different story of your own than if you sit down and watch the entire movie. And I've tried to do that lately, is to try to look at these little swatches of time. That's only one part of the story. You know, and I think about my own experience too. I think about times when I've been short with my kid, or I haven't been the nicest at the grocery store, or I've rushed through an interaction with somebody. I had a lady who I love to death and just absolutely adore her, and we had an interaction that was very awkward, and I felt really impressed to go back to her, and I was like, if I'd done something wrong, she was like, no, you just seem busy all the time. And I just broke down in tears, and it was a time in my life where I was busy. But I didn't intend for her to think she wasn't important to me because I was busy, and I needed to apologize for that, and I did. But those are the kinds of interactions she just saw that little piece, and she thought, oh, she's too busy for me. And there was all this other stuff going on that I had to explain to her. And once she gave me that opportunity, we cleared up, and everything was great. Everything was fine. But it was just that little interaction, that one time.
Well, and I think we forget that everybody's got stuff going on in their lives.
Oh, yes.
We forget that all the time. I'll look at someone and they'll be mean, or someone will cut me off in the road, but I don't know what happened to them that day. I don't know where they're going. We've talked about that before, where, you find out later, and it's like,
heading to the hospital.
I'm sorry. I like treated them badly, or thought badly of them, or called them, and whatever you did. Yeah, we just don't know. I think everybody does have stuff going on.
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to our thoughts. You know, how are we thinking about the interaction? How are we thinking about where we are? How are we thinking about God at that moment? I'm learning about my thoughts, and so much of my behavior is derived from my thoughts.
Yeah.
I have the thought, and then I react. I have the thought, and then I react. And if it's a negative thought, then I'm going to react negatively. And if I can change that to a better thought, then I respond better. And so I'm trying to kind of train myself to have better thinking. But it's not easy to do. And the second you get wrapped up in the situation, it just instinct takes over. But if you can stop and think, well, maybe this person just lost their job, or, maybe they're stressed because they have a relative in the hospital right now, it can give you just enough time to give the perspective so the thought doesn't take off into a negative behavior. And the negative behavior sometimes is posting on social media.
I think right now, everybody's going through something.
Yeah.
There's so much anxiety and stress, even if even if everything is fine, right? It's still summertime. It's a little more relaxed. But everybody, I've been talking to some of my friends, and they are not sleeping. They're stressed out. They're just, everybody's worried about things, and the news is very heightened these days. And there's not just one thing going on. There's a million things going on in the news. And so I feel like just as a whole, everybody is kind of on edge. Even if we're saying we're fine, inside there's a lot going on, and we have to remember that as we listen and respond to people and our thoughts. That's the thing I've been having a hard time with, and I'm trying to work on too. Yeah. Is that because I am stressed, and I'm like, well, I don't need to be. I need to trust in God, and so I need to try to replace those thoughts. And some days are better than others.
Yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to that verse in 2 Corinthians, I believe, that talks about taking every thought captive. We've visited that before. But I also think that I didn't even realize I was stressed out the other day. If you would have asked me, is anything stressing you out? I'd be like, no, there's nothing stressing me out. But my shoulders told a different story. I just felt like I was bracing, for something to smack me upside the head, and I was stressed, but I didn't know why. Right. And I was like, oh. So right now, we're all going to breathe. Drop our shoulders. Oh, yeah. Shake it out.
Oh, that's good.
So, because you can be stressed and not even really know it.
Well, and I have this breathing app on my phone that I didn't really set up. It just started, and I was ignoring it for the longest time. And then the other day, I'm like, maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
And it was helpful.
It is good.
It's like a whole minute of just breathing in and breathing out, but it makes you concentrate on your thoughts because you're not doing anything else.
And maybe that is captured in that time that we need to just breathe. We need to capture those thoughts and take them before the Lord and say, is there any, stinking thinking in this? Am I believing a lie? What am I believing about you? Because I think you're right. That's a lot of where our reactions start. But I think there's a piece in here, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, because I very well could be. I think there's a piece of humility in here too. Is I think that we have to. There were a lot of people at the beginning of the pandemic who would post the verse out of Chronicles that says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray." And I was just taken by the word humble, that if you'll humble yourself and pray. And I don't think there's a lot of humility in what the reactions that we're seeing online. And I've just been compelled, and people are like, well, you don't say anything, you're saying something,
Right.
But in quietness, I have just a lot of times taken those comments before the Lord and said, I don't know how to respond to this. So is there a way that I can serve in this comment?
Carol, there's no humility in arguments. I love that you said that. The second you become humble in that moment, the argument stops. Wow, that's a really powerful key that I'd never thought about. That's huge.
That's been on my mind so much. And almost I think I love our God because your relationship with him is as personal as mine is, And sometimes I think he must giggle at me and just go, why don't you just not say anything? If you're going to say something, just say something I said. Yeah. That always works out. But something you say never ends well, Carol, And I think he must giggle at times because, I'll type out the response.
Oh, yeah.
Get my keyboard. Here.
I mean, there's smoke flying from that keyboard. Yes,
there is. And he's like, no. Just be still. Be still. Know that I'm God. I'm in control. I'm not turning my head. I see everything that's happening. You don't have to worry. You don't have to carry that. Humble yourself and pray.
Well, let me ask you a quick question because I think we talked about, some of the ways that our differences in opinion work well with the respect, with the love, with the humility and listening. What if somehow you get into a discussion with someone who believes very differently than you do? Maybe they don't know Christ, or they're antagonistic towards our faith. How do you handle that, would you say? Because that can be very stressful.
Yeah. I've been in a couple of situations where that has been the case. I think you first of all pray for wisdom because sometimes people are looking for a fight. And especially when it comes to sharing your faith, sometimes people are looking for a fight. If they're looking for a fight, really nothing that you can say and no amount of humility is going to disarm them because they want to fight. The other thing is, if you listen long enough, they'll reveal their need to you.
That's good.
That's good.
You might have to listen longer than you normally would. But in that prayer, I have asked God numerous times that, Lord, show me the exact place that they have been hurt. And they'll talk about it. And you Christians, and you this. And if you believe that, then why this? And, I just like, all right, keep going, keep talking. And the encouragement to do that, then they go back to when they were in junior high and a Christian mistreated them, or they had a friend who was hurt by church, and they finally reveal and go, okay, here it is, and that gives me opportunity to say, that's the very reason I'm a believer, because people, no matter what they believe, are going to let you down. You're never going to find a savior in the people that are around you. But if you listen long enough, if you hang on through that, and it takes time and investment.
Yeah, it's not one. I don't think it's always one. It's not always one conversation either. It's just listen, and that first one may be that you don't get anywhere, and you're just listening.
Keep the door open.
But if you listen, they'll come back.
Yeah.
I had been praying for this one family member, honestly, for most of my life. I'm still praying for her. And when I went through my divorce, we were in a conversation with a lot of people, and she kind of smiled and she went, well, she said, I thought this divorce would be the end of this Jesus thing for you. And, it was real snarky like, and I just took a deep breath and, I said, you know what? I think it's just the beginning. And I walked out of the room and somebody else came after me and they're like, you can't say that and leave the room. And I'm like, I just did, but for her, like, it kind of took her aback because I didn't lash out and say anything, or I didn't say, oh yeah, right, I've given up on my faith. Right. I just said, I think this is just the beginning. And it was amazing after that, the number of opportunities I had to love her well and opportunities to like do things that nobody else did. And she was like, why would you do that for me? There again, she said, why would you do that for me? Nobody else has done that for me. And I'm like, because somebody did something for me that nobody else could do. And that person was Jesus, you know. And so I think if you listen long enough and you invest, and it's not an easy thing, and every situation's different. I wish there was one like perfect smackdown we could give people who aren't believers, you know, but that would just, you know, make all the love things go out the window and the grace. But I think if you listen long enough, they'll show you where that hurt place is that they need to be healed by Jesus. And maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that
sounds really good.
I think that's right.
So today, I want to end this with a challenge for us all.
Okay,
let's go.
So the challenge is, when you see, let's just talk social media for a minute. When you see something antagonistic or confrontational on social media, I want to challenge you, first of all, to pray. Okay. Second of all, say, do you love this person no matter what? Do you have their best interest at heart? And how can you humble yourself and respond? If you can't humble yourself and respond, then don't. Just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Because I think if we were to challenge each other and start this movement among us and among the girlfriends of the Girl Talk podcasts, and they were to share that with people, we could really start something huge here. Because, I mean, God opposes the proud. That's scriptural.
Yeah.
But he gives grace to the humble.
And he's the God of unity.
He's the God of unity. He is that. And so find ways to humble yourself and pray. And take a deep breath. It's okay that we're different. The differences are what makes our country great. Even differences in believers. I don't have a quiet time the same way you do, and that's okay. It's not mine's wrong or yours is wrong. It's just that we're different, and that's okay. Remember that you're going to have opportunities to have conversations with people, but I don't know of one person who's ever come to Christ being screamed at. I mean, I just don't know them.
No.
If they're out there, I just never met them before. It's been because somebody loved them well and walked with them through whatever it was, life threw their way. It may have been invited them over for dinner. It might have been,
forgave them.
It might have been, written them a card when a loved one died. Whatever it looks like, but just know you're going to have opportunities to share your faith. And if you'll humble yourself, if you'll pray, I think God will open up those doors. This has been a great conversation, very encouraging for me. And let's challenge each other to, and hold each other accountable too, to not get sucked into that vortex of negativity that happens on social media. Let's be the difference makers. Let's be the ones that handle things differently. Thank you so much for listening to the Girl Talk podcast, and we'll see you next time we gather around these microphones.